Welcome, ladies non-binaries and gentlemen, to a video, which despite the Zelda font on the title card isn't a Zelda video in the slightest. Sorry to subvert your expectation. For 110 years, the United States Congress has had 435 representatives apportioned to the states each decade based on the census. The size of the House used to scale with the population, but then they stopped for some dumb reason. There are many problems with this, and the logical solution would be to increase the size of the House. Here's a map of how many representatives are in each state. There are 6 states that have only 1 representative, while the largest state, California, has 52. Does that sound like a lot? Well, it actually isn't. With the size of the House frozen, the average district nowadays represents about 770,000 people, which is unreasonably many. For example, they live far apart and can't be in touch with all of them. The logical solution would be to increase the size of the House. But 770,000 is just an average, as these districts are extremely uneven in size. Wyoming's 576,851 people as of the 2020 census are represented by the same number of seats as Delaware's near million. And whereas Rhode Island has had 2 seats for centuries, Montana is almost the same size and it only regained its 2nd seat earlier this year. This is undemocratic if 500,000 have the same say as 1,000,000. The logical solution would be to increase the size of the House. California has 68 times the population of Wyoming, but only 52 times the representation. So one possible way to increase the size of the House would be to divide each state's population by that of the smallest and then round down, which would add 122 seats, yielding a total of 557 for this decade. Also, I gave DC and Puerto Rico statehood too. This was my first attempt, but I made it myself and that's what counts. There's definitely a noticeable improvement in the big states, but it violates monotonicity when Montana and Rhode Island lose seats, so that means it's no good. Sorry. Here's the apportionments anyway under my first attempt. I've shown the states that gained seats in green. Don't forget I also gave Puerto Rico and DC statehood. The big states sure needed the increase the most, but we can do better. For my second attempt, the Constitution itself has only one rule about House size, that there shall not be more than 1 representative per 30,000 people. The constitutionally mandated maximum number of representatives would thusly be 11,131, which is ridiculously big, so I then divide that by Wyoming's 19 and round up, yielding a 586-seat House. Biggest complication is the smallest states, because the rounding gave them all an extra seat. Damn it, small states, why do you have to be so small? 1 seat is not enough for you and 2 is too many. After the initial kerfluffle, it stabilizes very close to the Wyoming ratio, so it's not very much of an improvement. And here's a map of the constitutionally mandated apportionments. Ironically, the only states other than Wyoming which stayed the same as they are now are Montana and Rhode Island. We can do better. The cube root rule was something discovered by someone other than me. It is when the size of the legislature is the cube root of the population. The New York Times endorsed using this system in 2018, and they said it would make everything better. When including Puerto Rico and DC, the cube root of the US is 694. Then, I ruined it by how I apportioned it out. I made this formula to calculate the fraction the state would get. Some of you eagle-eyed viewers may notice that this does not add to the 694 I mentioned, but to a devilishly coincidental 666 representatives. I swear it's a coincidence, you can check my spreadsheet. This is because I avoided even touching fractional quotas to fill the rest of it. Fractional quotas were too hard for Alexander Hamilton himself to do properly. Anyways, I conclude there is no good way to solve the size of the small states, but it stabilizes once again at about 500,000 people per representative. For comparison, in 1929 the average represented 200,000 people and thusly thousands would be needed to equal that. I'm not superstitious, but this map with 666 representatives actually is extremely unlucky, because 3 times while making it I realized I'd been accidentally editing the constitutionally mandated map instead, so I had to restart. Must have been the petty revenge of the 9 states who feel cheated that they got 1 fewer seat than they could have gained from the conman method, so here I colored the remaining seat changes to reflect that. I don't think I'll make any more maps for this presentation. They're a tedious process to edit each state's value. The purpose of this exercise was to create smaller districts that are more representative of the country's population. Big districts are very stretchy and therefore easy to manipulate. Each state's electoral districts are usually drawn by the ruling party in the state legislatures, who always gerrymander the boundaries to keep themselves in power. Who the F40PH decided that was a good idea? The answer is that the Reapportionment Act of 1929 failed to specify it. My proposal is to have districts instead be drawn by an independent committee consisting of 1 unyielding hardline Democrat and 1 unyielding hardline Republican, who are immune to bribery if there's any such thing, because then if they can make a map they both agree on, it must be fair. There are two techniques for gerrymandering: packing as much of the opposition as possible into one district so they only win there, and diluting the opposition across multiple districts so they lose in all of them. If the districts are smaller, it gets much harder to manipulate them, and therefore is more representative of the actual makeup of the country. Even with the small discrepancies, this 25-district map is objectively better. Electoral districts don't just determine the legislatures, they are also important for presidential elections because rather than the individual popular vote determining who wins, they are instead counted by an archaic and frustrating process called electoral college. Each state has a point value equal to the number of representatives and senators it has. Whoever wins in each district counts as a point, and except for Maine and Nebraska who do it sensibly, winning a simple majority of districts in the state gives that candidate all of that state's points, and whoever gets more than 270 out of 538 points wins. Also, for some reason, Electoral College is also a person who does something symbolic a month after the election is finished. I can't fathom why they would exist. They seem superfluous. What is their purpose? They are literally just symbolic. I just realized that my apportionments would have been a lot better if I'd made it based on electoral votes rather than representatives, as every state also has 2 senators, no matter how big it is. So the average people per elector only increases as the state gets bigger. California has 68 times the population of Wyoming, but only 18 times the electoral votes. So I made the ratio of people per electoral vote equal to Wyoming's, and this might actually be similar to how the real Wyoming rule works, yielding a massive house with 1,668 seats. California now has 204 representatives. The average size hovers around 200,000 people per representative, which is close to how it was before they stopped expanding the House. You can see the very clear improvement here. You might have noticed Wyoming still has only 1 representative by definition, but here it's actually a feature rather than a bug. Now there's no more than the size of 1 large town's difference in people per elector between states. This is the fair solution I've been looking for. I remember the 2016 election was when I first got into political activism. I was so shocked and disgusted that winners could lose and losers could win. A more proportional representation could have fixed that. All the current system does is enable losers to cheat by depriving the big states of their due representation. A more proportional representation could fix that, and the logical solution is to expand the size of the House. Thank you for bearing with me. I hope you were able to understand the good parts. Be sure to absolutely smash those like, subscribe, and bell buttons as if you were the Speaker of the House. Thank you.